Really, it's all about people happiness.
Thank you, Mr. Lorenz. Isaac, you have 1 minute to respond as well.
If you look at NAFTA and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, they're all meant to rein in a certain country. Now, the Trans-Pacific Partnership was originally meant as why America would support it was to rein in China's economy. Now, since China's already denied joining the TPP, what we have to do is we have to find ways to individually strengthen our own economy. So I do not support the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and I think that the best way for us to grow is to help stimulate jobs by giving corporations more money, because when corporations have more money, they're allowed to hire more, they're allowed to innovate more, and then when those people that are hired have money, they're allowed to purchase more, which stimulates our economy once again. And then once you have enough supply being produced, then you have lower class citizens that are also gaining money through production.
Thank you, Mr. Tang. Mr. Kuja, you have a minute to respond to this as well.
So yes, NAFTA is important. It's important that we use our influence throughout the world to regulate the economy or to be involved in other countries, and trade is very valuable as an incentive for big businesses to come up in the US and to repatriate their profits and to boost their economy. But more than our international policy, it's better that we focus on our domestic policy with the economy. And that all stems from improving the lower class. As I said earlier, the nation is only as great as its weakest link. So if the lower class cannot boost our economy, cannot pay into it, cannot afford to pay the taxes, cannot get enough education, enough healthcare, enough services, they can't help us out. They can't benefit, they can't put more money into the economy, they can't participate on the same level as the middle class. It's important that we level that income gap before we can participate in global affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Kuja. We have one more CR question available on the economy topic. This one will be directed to Isaac. Does anyone have a question? Kevin?
So, my name is Kevin. I'm from Nevada and Arizona. So, do you support Obamacare? Yeah.
Obamacare has been a severe issue for our country because how it represents healthcare overall. So America has one of the strongest healthcare systems, since with all our multitudes of companies, we can provide not only the best care, but also the fastest care. We've been developing new drugs, new methods of treating not only cancer, but lots of other issues. And that's only because we've had a more free market on healthcare. But with the introduction of Obamacare, we've destroyed that. We've raised prices on individual insurance too high, while also forcing people into one sort of system, which has raised drug prices and also made less coverage overall for the vast swath of American people. So what has to be done is we have to repeal Obamacare and find a better solution to all these issues.
Thank you, Mr. Tang. Kevin, was your question for all the candidates or just Isaac? Okay, Mr. Kuja, you also have a minute to respond.
Right. Let me tell you guys a statistic. Since Obamacare was instated, 20 million more people have healthcare now than before Obamacare. This is really significant. This is a large population of the United States. It's important that we mandate this healthcare because just like insurance, everyone must be part of this system for it to function properly. Sure, there are several issues with Obamacare, but my great team here, I have a great team of economists, and they will help us solve these problems and streamline the process so that it influences every American and betters their situation. It's a necessity, basically, government-funded healthcare. Not everyone can afford it, but we have to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to play into it, but because the government will subsidize it. That's key for peace of mind and safety nets for all as they move forward in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Kuja. Mr. Lorenz, you have 1 minute to respond as well.
Folks, I worked in the corporation for a long time. I know how Obamacare works. I know how insurance works. I know how healthcare works. My team knows how healthcare works. Obamacare was made to help fill in the gaps where insurance doesn't cover these types of people. That's what it's made for. And as your president, I would keep Obamacare. I would keep a national healthcare system, publicly funded, that would allow everybody to opt in when they want to. Everybody deserves coverage. It should be a basic human right of ours. And we would take care, as Zane also said, we would take care. There are some problems with Obamacare. We would allow you to keep your current system because, as Isaac said, some people do prefer their own system. And they can keep it. Or they can opt into our national health care. And healthcare is not, and what is holding us back from innovating in drugs is not healthcare, it's corporations.
Thank you, Mr. Lorenz. We will be transitioning to our education segment, which will be led by Kedar.
All right, let's start. Mr. Kuja, what is your plan for the current U.S. public school system?
So, as I said earlier, the United States is only as great as its weakest link. So we must focus on training the lower class. That's the engine of the economy. That's the working class. That's what fuels our businesses, our schools, our military, our policy. That's our next generation, basically. So we must focus on a good Common Core so people in the suburbs of Detroit get the same education and preparation as people in Silicon Valley or even in Florida where we are now. In addition, affirmative action is important because that's the way for minorities to escape this disadvantaged situation that they're in and rise up to influence the greater economy. And education is universal. Everyone has a right to it. No matter who you are, no matter how much you can afford, no matter how much you make, you have the right to education, and we will get you this right. We will give you all the opportunities you need. We will help fund you. We will make sure that the next generation is just as good, if not better, as our current generation.
Thank you, Mr. Kuja. Mr. Lorenz, you have 45 seconds to respond.
It is without doubt that children are our most important part of our society. They are the future. And every human has the right to be educated. We believe that. Every human has the right to be educated. Student loans are going to be forgiven on an as-needed basis if you can't afford to pay it. Because that's what education means to America. It means getting it no matter what. Environmental studies should also be part of the grade school curriculum because, as I've said before, the world is our home. And we need to take care of it, and that starts with our children. We need to teach our children to care about the environment. We need to teach our children to care about ourselves and our place in the world.
Thank you, Mr. Lorenz. Mr. Tang, you have 45 seconds to respond.
I think Common Core has essentially destroyed the individual, actually. With two parties that are against corporations, it's surprising that they support such a fundamentally flawed system that prevents individuals to show how strong they are. If you look at the inner cities, Common Core isn't helping more students stay in school. What it's doing is preventing those that are special in inner cities to prove their worth. And now you're seeing less and less people that are becoming innovators because you're not allowing them the right to study.
Thank you, Mr. Tang. The next question we have is directed to Mr. Lorenz. The Common Core state standards instituted by Obama administration have become extremely controversial since their adoption in 2010. Please elaborate on your views on Common Core and higher education standards. You have 1 minute to respond.
I believe in Common Core. I believe that everybody should have a systemized education so we all know what we're getting in. This would also help us further environmental education in grade schools. And I think it's only become controversial because people like to have options, and they can have options under Obama's policy of Common Core. They can have options, but they also do need to adhere to a certain set of guidelines to teach our kids because they all need to be educated, and we need to make sure that they're being educated in a way that will prepare them for the future, that will prepare them to be innovators for the future, that will prepare them to take care of our world, to take care of their children. And that's what Obamacare, excuse me, that's what Obamacare is about in terms of taking care of our people in health, but in education, every Common Core. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lorenz. Mr. Tang, you have 45 seconds to respond.
James said that Common Core is about preparation for students. Yet when I look at Common Core, I'm not looking at a system that promotes students to pursue their passion. They're promoting a system that wants to plump up all the students without letting other students shine. You're not giving education to people who might want to pursue a field in such as one of the trade schools like carpentry. And if you want to help the working class, you want to help them by giving them opportunities in education, which is better by giving block grants to individual states based on what they need.
Thank you, Mr. Tang. Mr. Cujo, you have 45 seconds as well.
So I'm not too sure what Obamacare has to do with education, but I believe that by providing the best possible education for our lower classes, we are strengthening our workforce from the day that they come into this world. And I do agree with this policy on Common Core that we need to prepare everyone equally, and that's why government-funded public schools are key to ensuring this nation is great. Without publicly funded education, not everyone will have the same access to these great Common Core policies. Sure, there's some issues because not everyone has access to it, but we will fix that by having a more accessible education for everybody, no matter where you come from.
Thank you, Mr. Cujo. We now open the floor to CR questions directed toward Mr. Tang. CRs from Ohio, Pennsylvania.
We want to
We'd like to
get
hear
as many states as possible.
Oh, CR from, what's it? New Hampshire?
Yeah, my name is Lloyd from New Hampshire.
Is it directed towards
So-
all candidates or?
No, this question goes to only Mr. Tang. So you've already said that you disagree with the Common Core. Then do you agree with the idea that the government should tax their rich and corporation to for a student loan for the poor students?
You have a minute to respond.
I think that it's, while there are certain factors going into it, it's a person's choice to take student loans.